started it. There we go.
Okay, welcome everyone to the July 25th Watershed Planning Commission meeting. We will get started. I'll call the meeting to order and we will take a quick look at the agenda here in the meeting minutes. Do we have any suggested edits to the agenda or meeting minutes to start? Okay, hearing none, could we have a motion to approve the agenda and meeting minutes as they are included in the packet?
Commissioner Shea, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as in the packet.
And do we have a second?
Commissioner Beerling, I'll second that.
Thank you. Melissa, are you going to roll call?
Yep, I'm going to call the roll.
Okay.
Commissioner Casilius,
Aye.
Commissioner Pint,
Aye.
Commissioner Beerling,
Aye.
Commissioner Weaver,
Aye.
Commissioner Shea,
Aye.
and Commissioner Schmidt.
Aye.
Perfect. All right. With no changes to the agenda or meeting minutes, we can move forward with Troy and his Scott County report.
Madam Chair, I just got a message from Troy that he needs the link. So if you don't mind, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to send him the link, but I don't know if it'd be all right to do maybe the WMO update first while Troy logs on, and then he can give his report once he's able to join.
Yep, let's do that. So let's jump down to Melissa with a WMO report.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Weaver. So it's a really short one. The only report I have from Vanessa to give you is that the McMahon outlet project is mostly on hold right now. Vanessa will give more of an update at the next month's meeting. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to send her an email and reach out to her, and she'll call you when she returns from vacation on Monday. But otherwise, she'll give an update at next month's meeting when she's present at the meeting. And that's all I have for the WMO update.
Melissa, does anyone remember how far we were on that? Were we out for bids or anything yet? I can't even remember where we left off.
Yep, so we actually contracted with WSB, who did start some work on engineering and design, mostly just data collection and survey work.
Okay.
And that is still moving forward at the moment. We do have a meeting set up with them. I think it's in next week or in 2 weeks. But that's all I can give you at the moment.
Okay. Great, thanks. Okay, then Troy, were you able to join us?
Yes, thank you.
Great, okay, we'll turn it over to you.
All right. Good afternoon, commissioners. Just reading some highlights from the July WPC report for SWCD. Technical assistance and cost share requests. I think the last time it presented, we were kind of in the lower end of that dip there in the January, February timeframe. As you can see, we bounced back up to around 225 or so requests for conservation assistance. You see over 150 of those are from the Scott WMO. That's represented in the blue line. And then the smaller column paired up with the taller column, those represent the projects. Those are cost share or service requests where the landowner wants to proceed with a project. And they're represented by that column anywhere from just the planning phase to approved contracts to construction. So slightly over 100 of those are currently in play. Moving on to soil health. So we continue to implement the 5-year strategic plan, although we've kind of passed 5 years, and we'll be working with Ryan and Vanessa on updating our next phase of that strategic plan. But we continue to proceed with many of the same efforts in between here. So we get new requests for cover crops and no-till. We rented the drill out to a couple of landowners for no-till beans this spring. We collect soil samples, both at our cover crop test plot and the comparison plot. So the cover crop test plot is the one just south of Belle Plaine. A number of you were probably at the tour we had a few years ago out there, and comparison plots are actually on large scale fields where the producer is splitting their cropping system between their conventional or regular practices and cover crops. So we just compare the results in terms of yield and soil health indicators. So right now we're in the midst of planning for the fall cover crop aerial seeding. That's where we basically coordinate aerial seeding among any interested farmer. We typically get, anywhere from 300 to 600 acres, multiple farmers across the county. It's just a cost-effective way to help farmers give cover crops a try, and in fact, those who are even experienced with it jump in on it as well. But we take care of everything from coordinating the flight to purchasing the seed and getting the maps together for the pilot, and just a way of facilitating that process to make it easier. Clean Water Education Program, we hosted a native native prairie workshop. That was earlier in June. We had 19 attendees. That was our in-person workshop. We gathered names for our conservation leaders, and our board took action actually last week to nominate Casey Akers as our Scott County Conservation Leader of the Year. We're getting ramped up to for the Outdoor Education Day. We're going to push through 1,200 to 1,400 students, and we're just getting all the final preps and organization ready for that, which will occur at the end of September, that last week. Inventory and assessment. So we're really working on the Vermilion River subwatershed assessment. I know that's outside the WPC's area, but just so you're aware, we're doing a similar study there as we did on Roberts Creek this past year. I'll skip down to buffer law. So we prepared our annual we're preparing for our annual buffer compliance checks. So we do buffer inspections once every 3 years, and they rotate around different areas of the county. This year it's the northern third. So everything from Prior Lake, east and west and north of that is that area that we're inspecting this year. We also do some random checks and miscellaneous checks in other areas as well. Tree and native plant sale. So in addition to our annual tree program, we've expanded that to include native plants. So we take tree orders from January through April, and then in May through early June, we take orders for native plant kits. And these are used to plant native prairie gardens for pollinators, rain gardens, natural shoreline restoration projects. So we sold 170 of those kits, and then almost 60 bags of native seed as well. Surface water monitoring. So we continue to conduct our biweekly sampling of Brewery Creek. That's the stream of focus this year. We completed a draft results report on our 2021 macrovertebrate sampling. That was on Pika Creek. We did that for the highway department. We did put together the final results and payment requests for our monitoring for DNR, the observation well monitoring program. That was what one of the areas we highlighted in last year's tour, if you remember that. So we completed that round, and now we're heading into the 2023 fiscal year monitoring, and we'll do that the same. We got about 13, 14 sites around the county. Precipitation, you can see from the chart there that June was way low, way below normal. It comes as no surprise, as all of you are familiar with what's happening out there. But we were tracking pretty average for the year up to that point, as you can see. Construction erosion control, so these include plan reviews, which are represented by the purple line, and the numbers of plan reviews is on the right-hand side of the graph there. You see we almost hit 30 for June. And then the number of inspections is represented by the bars, and you see around 250, 260, inspections. Those do include Credit River, which of course is a city, and we do them separately, but or we at least bill them separately from the county inspections, but nevertheless they do amount to the total there. The Wetland Conservation Act, we're seeing a lot of activity on that, as you can see. Normally we see that spike happen earlier in the year, but for some reason this year they were like delayed more, so we're seeing more mid-year activity, and that continues to be the case here. Moving down, we have, I'll just point out the Helena Wetland Bank, just slightly above there, there you go. So we completed our spring invasive species survey. So we have a consultant that does monitoring twice a year for us. The first one that is done in spring is for invasive species. We identify noxious weeds and other non-native vegetation, and provides us a strategy for reducing or eradicating that. And then we get another round of monitoring that's done like in August, and they look at actually looking at the native community out there and seeing how robust it is. And those monitoring reports are used to determine whether or not we're meeting the performance standards for the bank. And if those performance standards are being met, along with the hydrology restoration, then that's when they start releasing more of the credits out of that bank. But so far, everything's looking pretty good. Equipment rental program, skip to that. You can see we're over the 1,000-acre mark. So we were about this level this amount last year. So we're tracking really well for another pretty high use year. Most of the acreage you see there is from the John Deere drill. That's no-till soybeans and lots of cover crops. The tax cost share grant status, you'll see we have about $390,000 from Soil and Water, paired up with $386,000 from Wmo, for a total of $776,000 in available funds for a cost share between now and maybe 2024 time period. And the graph there just shows all the different sectors of those grants with the available amount that's left and the encumbered amount. So the payments, so these in the table show the payments we made for Wmo residents in both June and July. Since we skipped June, this does reflect payments that were certified by our board in both months, as well as new applications. You'll see on the far right column, we approved over $17,000 worth of payments in the last 2 months, and approved over $20,400 new cost share applications. So with that, Madam Chair, I'll try to stand for any questions if there are any.
Thank you, Troy. I have a quick question for you, jumping way back to the cover crops. I'm curious if you could speak in generalities, how many farmers continue to do them or do them year after year versus try them out and then decide they don't want to continue?
You know, I've heard of just a small half a handful, 1, 2, maybe 3 at the most, who've tried it and don't want to try it, but we're really seeing the trend in the opposite direction. A lot of the new applications are from folks who haven't done it before and are coming around. So, I mean, it's not, you know, skyrocketing. However, I would say that we continue to, on a steady pace, to get new interest, and those that try it are continuing with it, is what we see mostly.
Great, great.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions for Troy? Okay, hearing none, we can move to ongoing business. Since Melissa already covered the WMO, to Ryan with 2022, July 2022 project updates.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, I don't have a lot of updates, just a few to pass along. One, this is the time of the year where we're going out and inspecting our previously constructed projects. So we have to do, you know, periodic checks on them. And if you remember, we have a new status review database that we're using. And so it's working out pretty well. And we've done, maybe half to 3/4 of the sites that we needed to. There's still a few more to go. One good piece of information that came out of one of the site visits was we had a representative from Interflu come down from, I think he was in Canada at the time, came down and he wanted to come out and take a look at one of the project sites just to see how it was doing. And it was our phase 1 site. And if you remember, I've talked about it for maybe the last couple of years. We were planning on doing maintenance on one of the structures that one of the vertical logs on the outside of the structure snapped off during an ice jam that we had one spring. Now it's been several years since that happened, and we've been taking an eye, monitoring it, keeping an eye on it, and it really hasn't changed. It's actually starting to improve a bit. And it was nice because the representative had noticed that as well. And for the time being, we're going to hold off on any maintenance. The concern was that if it started to scour out inside that structure and start to expose more logs, wash some of the material that we had inside there away, that it would be critical to get, rocks in there. And that's just not occurring. If anything, it's actually accumulating. It's racking up wood that's floating down the stream. And it's kind of filling in that void that we were wanting to do that anyway. So for now, we're just going to wait, keep an eye on it if things were to change. We do have our public works department that has looked at it, and we still have, I think, a couple of years on our permit to do the work. But for now, we're just going to hold off. And then last update, as with any of our projects and doing these periodic status reviews, it's one of the, they're all important to go out there in each time frame that you do them. One that's quite high on the importance level or priority is right before any of our easements come off of a project. That way we take a look at it right before that happens, and if something needs to be done, we've got enough time to go out there and maybe do the work. So you typically try to get out there a year before it's over, and then leave yourself a window of time, assuming nothing major happens from now to then, that you kind of inspected it at the very tail end of it. Believe it or not, our Clark's Lake project is a year away from the easement being done on it. So it expires next year, next summer. And so along with Commissioner Schmidt, we went out there last week and took a look at it, and everything seemed to be doing well. So, we were looking for, is there any erosion that's occurring around the structure that could potentially be causing any water levels to be lower? I'm going to switch screens here for a second, and I can share with you a few pictures of it. Bear with me. All right. Can you see this in a somewhat larger scale picture?
We see like your Windows Explorer page with the 4 pictures.
All right. I was fearful that might be the case. Hold on one second. Let me do this one more time. All right, is that a little bit bigger?
Yep.
Okay. So this is the structure. So this would be looking downstream. In this wet area would be the upstream part of the structure. And so water is not obviously flowing through the structure, or it wasn't on Friday. But you can also see that it is somewhat saturated. You can see some duckweed on it. So not too long ago, it would have been at kind of full capacity here. The vegetation has grown in quite thick. We do have a little bit of a willow tree that kind of broke off and is falling near kind of the structure and overhangs. Some of the branches overhang it. So that could potentially be something we go out there and remove it. It didn't seem like too much of a concern though. So that's one picture. Let me show you one that's maybe more down the whole thing, so you can see it a little bit better. So here's more the entire kind of what's exposed. I mean, some of this cable concrete is towed into the side slopes here, and so this is kind of what's sort of exposed. And so I just want to share with everybody that we did go out there, take a look at it. At this time, there are no concerns. Everything seems to be holding up well. And hopefully, you know, we don't have any major events or anything that could potentially do anything from now till then. And if that does happen, then we would go out there and take a look at it at that time. So right now should be looking good. And if all of a sudden we were to get a larger rain event, then we'll go out there and take a look at it again. So with that, I will stand for any questions.
Great, thanks, Ryan. Any questions for Ryan? Okay, hearing none, I think we can move on to Melissa's July 2022 project updates.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple things. So lake vegetation surveys have been going on the last 2 months. I did go out on Thole Lake on June 27th. And within about the first hour, the motor clogged, so I was not able to finish that survey again. So I've decided that I'm going to have to do a full lake survey on Thole during the pre-treatment survey in early May. It just seems like that particular lake really has algae growth, and trying to get out there later in the year, it just clogs up my motor. O'Dowd was scheduled the same week as Thole, but we had 90-degree weather, and I'm rescheduling that just because O'Dowd takes just as long as Cedar because of all the points and all the different bays. And it's just a really long day to be out there in 90-some degree weather. So I'm rescheduling that for hopefully next month. McMahon, we went out on July 7th. We're being consistent with past years of sampling around the same date. Interesting thing about that is this was the first year that I went out there, and within the first hour and a half, the motor clogged on McMahon. So I could tell there was algae growth in the lake when we were launching, and I was kind of wondering about that, and we didn't even get the whole bay sampled, and the motor clogged up on that too. So I'm going to have to reschedule going out on that again. What was encouraging though is that the few samples that we did get in the bay, on one of the samples I ID'd 6 different native species. So the lake is looking really good as far as native species diversity. On Cedar, we went out on July 14th. That went really well. I think that the treatment is a really good success. There was a lot of kind of barren areas, so we really hit curly leaf hard this year. And the DNR did come out and help with some of the points, which is surprising because they're down to 1 staff person in that department. They do have like 2 to 3 interns this year that are helping out, but it's just April. Keegan and Kylie moved on to different positions, so they're hoping to have more staff on soon. But it was really nice for her to actually get down there and try to help out a little bit. So it's been a year of having some issues with scheduling surveys, lots of hot weather, and surprising motor getting clogged on a couple of different lakes. So hopefully I can get back out on O'Dowd and McMahon next month. Since the next item is about the One Watershed, One Plan, I'll let either Commissioner Pint or Commissioner Weaver talk about what's going on tomorrow night. But my last update is about the Scott County Fair starts this week. I did create an informational board for the Scott County booth that's about fluctuating water levels and how they're caused and what the landowners can do about that. And then a little information about some facts that I told you about, quite a while ago at one of the WPC meetings about the changing climate patterns. I thought that'd be interesting for people to know. And then I also created a water softener display for the public to educate them on how water softeners do contribute to salt pollution in our surface waters. So just so you know, I'm not a professional display builder. So if you get a chance to get out to the fair and take a look at it, I welcome any feedback on improvements to it, because we hope to be able to use that at the government center to put in like the public area where, you know, all the public's coming in to like customer service. That's still being discussed though by Scott County Governance Group on whether, because they're getting a lot of requests from departments to put tables out there now and you know, have displays for the public. So that's all I have at the moment, and I'll stand for any questions if anybody has any.
Just a quick question, Melissa, with being out on the lakes, does it seem like they're low already with how dry it's been?
Full definitely is. Yes, I would say all 3 lakes that I was able to get out on are low. Yeah.
Any other questions for Melissa? Okay, I could give a quick update on the One Watershed One plan, where we're at. It's off to a slow start, and a lot of that is just because there's a lot of contracts to deal with and lining up of the consultant and things like that. But now it seems like things will be able to get moving a little bit more. There was only one consultant that responded to the RFP to help with development of the plan, and that was ISG. So I know they were working on just getting the final costs laid out with Holly and the other staff that are working on that side of it. But then ISG will be helping us through the process of developing that plan. And then they do have the public open houses scheduled. So tomorrow is the first one down in New Prague, and it essentially is going to be where they ask the public to come in and talk about what's important to them. So that way it can help drive the plan too. So it's not just the different committees and folks that sit on the planning committee. It's the public can drive that too if they have interest in certain areas. So I know Virgil said he will be able to make it down to that, but if anyone else is interested in that, we can get you the details to be able to attend that meeting. The next one, I don't have the next one offhand, but maybe Melissa has that handy. Otherwise I can look that up too while she's adding to her part of the update. But I don't know if I have anything else to add right now on the One Watershed One plan.
Just to let everyone know, there is free barbecue if you want to come to it. They're feeding you for free if you want to come and give your input on it. I don't have the next date yet on my calendar.
Okay.
I probably sent that out yet.
Yeah, maybe they haven't scheduled it yet, because I know they were talking too about doing in-person and virtual. So they would have a virtual option also. So maybe they don't have that next one scheduled yet.
Yeah, if I can contribute, Commissioner. I don't believe they're going to have another public one. The remaining one will just be the virtual participation. So they won't have like
Okay.
a person one.
Okay. So if you want to go to an in-person one, it looks like it is going to be at the Cedar Lake Farm Regional Park Pavilion tomorrow from 6 to 8.
Everybody plan on it. Go. We're planning for 150 minimum, and we don't have that many RSVPs. So we try to get the numbers up. If anybody's interested, encourage you to go. Bring your spouse or significant other, your kids. Have a good time out there. And there's no formal, there's a small formal introduction, but otherwise it's mostly stations, and you just basically walk around and talk to folks and provide input. That way, there's no formal time and no formal presentation per se. So kind of at your leisure.
And one last comment on that, there is now a website set up for the Lower Minnesota River East Watershed Group, and Troy, is the online survey link on there? I haven't gone on the website yet.
I'll check it right now, actually.
Because if people are interested, we could send that out if you wanted to do the online survey too.
Could you throw that link in the chat, maybe, Melissa? I don't even know if I've seen that link yet for I know they were talking about setting up the website page, but I hadn't seen it yet. Any other questions or comments about One Watershed, One Plan or that effort? Thanks, Troy.
Yep, I don't think the survey is up there yet.
Okay. Okay, hearing nothing else, we can move on to our new business, and looks like we have a public hearing information up, and I believe that's going to be Megan.
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. Commissioners, Megan Tasca, I'm the county's water resources engineer. Here for our annual public meeting on our MS4 permit and our stormwater pollution prevention plan at the county here. So just going to give a little presentation here real quick and then open it up for any questions, comments, anything you want to throw at me. So thank you, everybody. All right, Ryan, you want to scroll on down? Go up just a little bit. All right, so this first little slide here that hopefully everybody is seeing is a representation of our MS4 areas within Scott County. The areas shaded in blue are our county MS4 areas, and it also includes the townships of, Louisville, Spring Lake, and Jackson. Along with the whole city of Credit River is now considered an MS4 as well. So we have recently added this information to our SG3 map online. So that's a new layer if anybody is ever interested in looking exactly where our MS4 areas are or not, but it does not cover the whole county. That is what this map is trying to show. So Ryan, if you want to scroll down. The MS4 permit, and MS4, for anybody who's curious, stands for Small Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System. Basically, it's publicly owned stormwater conveyances. So it covers streets, curbs and gutters, catch basins, storm sewer, culverts, things like that within our MS4 areas. And under the permit, which is part of the Clean Water Act on a federal level, they have a federal permit and then a state permit, and then the state issues general permits, which we are required to obtain coverage under. And the state permit has what they call MCM, so minimum control measures that each general permittee needs to comply with. So the first MCM1 is dealing with public education and outreach. And at the county level, we participate in the Scott Clean Water Education Program, which is SHWEP. Those of you, I'm sure most of you are familiar with it. If you are not, this is an amazing organization that does webinars, outreach, education on in our local schools, things like that. And that is actually housed out at our soil and water area. So Shelby Roberts out there is the education specialist in charge of that. So any questions about that, I can certainly point you her direction, but that is what we do for our MCM1. So next, MCM2 is public participation and involvement, which is what we are doing right now. So this is your chance to speak up. Although this is not your only chance to comment and get involved. You are always welcome to contact me with any questions, comments, concerns. I will gladly assist you. We are always accepting feedback on our current SWIP and practices. So let's move on. MCM3, illicit discharge detection and elimination. So we are responsible for doing inspections of our systems to determine if anything is getting into it that is not stormwater. Oils, grease, detergents, anything that causes weird odors, smells, colors, anything like that. So the county does do inspections of our stormwater ponds, our outfalls, which are areas where our stormwater leaves our system and enters another system. And during those inspections, we do look for anything that does not appear to be stormwater. And we certainly recommend if you are out in the public and you see something, please say something because we cannot be everywhere all at once. All right, moving on. MCM4, construction site stormwater runoff controls. So this is one that has actually changed here recently. A new general permit was issued in 2020. We did receive coverage in October of 2021. And we have a year here to make some changes to our stormwater ordinance. Changes are being proposed and actually will be considered at the August Planning Commission meeting. If anybody would like to get more information on that, please let me know. It's not a major change, but it does add in a definition now for fully reconstructed impervious area, whereas previously our stormwater ordinance would have just considered a net increase and determining if stormwater management would be required. But now if somebody takes an existing building, tears it down, and then rebuilds a new building on top of it, it would be considered fully reconstructed and therefore possibly needing stormwater management if they are within our MS4 areas. So that's the major change to our construction site water stormwater program. And that will probably go into effect in the next couple of months here. So. And that is actually that was a little bit more of our post-construction stormwater management. I'm sorry. MCM4 also involves our construction site erosion control inspections that SWCD carries out for us and stuff like that. So I'm sorry, I spoke out of order on that one. All right, keep going. MCM6, pollution prevention, good housekeeping for municipal operations. This mainly deals with smart salt storage. Our actual public works facility where our salt is kept is not part of our MS4 area, but we do follow good salting recommendations out there, and the salt is stored inside under the buildings and stuff like that. So, and also part of that is, the smart salting trainings that Melissa organizes and does a lot of, so stuff like that. And that's part of our SWEP stuff too, is salt education for homeowners and businesses. All right, we can scroll down. So this year, yes, we did obtain coverage under the new permit. We will be making some changes to our stormwater ordinance under Chapter 6 of the zoning ordinance. And we certainly recommend, would like any comments or questions on that when that comes up at the Planning Commission, or even beforehand, if you want to send them ahead of time, that's perfectly fine too. But we can scroll down. Or I think we already kind of covered most of these ordinance. Oh, the other big thing that we do need to add is a pet waste ordinance and some salt storage language to our ordinances. So that's another big one that we don't have currently. So at this time, that's all I really have to say. And I open up for any questions, comments, concerns from anybody. Public,
Thanks,
board. Thank you.
Any questions for Megan? Okay, hearing none.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Yeah, Melissa with a cedar zooplankton sampling.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just moving my notes over here. Actually, Ryan, can you bring up, so I did also add the report from BAR to the packet, which is right after the memo. Well, actually, we can stay right there with the charts there. So just as a recap, in May of 2021, we saw the deepest water clarity in Cedar Lake since we started in-lake management in it, and we thought it would be a great opportunity to find out if zooplankton are playing a role in that deep water clarity last year. So we contracted with Bar Engineering to sample cedar in late July of 2021. Those results did indicate the presence of large-bodied cladocerans. It's a type of zooplankton that eats algae, suggesting that it was plausible that zooplankton grazing on the algae could have caused the clear water conditions in 2021. So we decided to test that. So we contracted with Bar Engineering again, and they went out and took a sample in cedar in May, I believe it was May 10th of 2022, to compare the zooplankton numbers and community groups between 2021 and 2022, which is what those charts represent. So when they take a sample, they do a vertical sample, which is basically lowering a net towards the bottom of the lake and then pulling it straight up and catching whatever they can in it. And then they do a horizontal sample, which is basically dragging the net horizontally through the water for a certain number of meters. And then, we wanted to see whether the large-bodied cladoceran numbers were higher in the spring than they were in the summer. What we found by the charts there was that the cladocerans were found, but in low numbers in both 2021 and 2022, and probably reflects the impacts of fish predation, because that's one of fish's favorite food is the cladocerans. A good observation to note, though, from this sampling is that there were no zebra mussel villagers found in the sample. The same as last year, there was no zebra mussel villagers found, which is the larvae of zebra mussels. So when you find those, you know that you have zebra mussels in the lake. So we've concluded that the 2022 sampling does not indicate a direct link to the clear water condition that we found or that we observed in May of 2021. So we don't have any plans to sample zooplankton again at this time in Cedar. So, but the full report is included in the packet if you want to take a look at it and read it. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those now or later if you get a chance to read the report later and have some questions. So that's all I have, Madam Chair, for that.
Okay, any questions for Melissa? All right, well, I'll ask one then. Critters are not my thing. Tell me what this means. Is this, how bad is this or good is this, or?
Well, so what we were looking for, the answer was to why we saw that clear water condition in Cedar Lake in May of last year. This tells us that there are zooplankton, so there is a healthy zooplankton community in Cedar Lake. The numbers of the cladocerans that we like to see and that can contribute to clear water clarity aren't as high as we'd like them to be. But overall, it's pretty normal.
Okay.
The community that we're seeing. We do have a really healthy fish population in Cedar Lake, especially with crappies. And so they're probably feeding on those cladocerans early on. So in fact, if anyone's interested, the DNR just finished a new fish survey, which is now on their website. So that was done in 2020, I think, or 2021. So I just looked and the survey results are on their website if you wanted to take a look at what those are. So.
Perfect, thanks. Yeah, like I said, I know just enough to be dangerous. So I was wondering if this was one of these things that like over time, now it'll get worse. Like zebra mussels, supposedly they make water clear, right? And then it gets worse and worse and then they take over. But it sounds like this is okay, huh? Okay, great. Okay, then I think we can move on to Ryan with the Zando Avenue design bid.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, yes. So I kept these out of the project updates earlier to kind of give them special attention. So we've gone out for proposals on 2 projects. One is the Xanadu Avenue. project. And if you remember, this is a second site on the same property that we completed in winter of 2020. And so we had kind of 2 sites we were looking at. Our remaining grant funds that we had only really allowed us to pursue the other project. This one, the initial thought was that it was a little bit more expensive. So we went out to bid, and we've got a familiar company that we're going to be working with. So this is Interfluve won the bid, and this was part of our feasibility study. One of the sites that we identified, we've really narrowed that list down considerably. So these 2 projects are probably they could be some of the last 2 that we complete off of that study, but we've done a number of them. The one thing you'll notice that I put the bid for the project at under 100,000. So at the time of finishing this memo, I didn't have the exact number. We were kind of negotiating with them, and so it's 98,500 is the winning bid for this one. So with that, I'll stand for any questions before we move on to the Pika Creek one.
Any questions for Ryan? Okay, I think we're ready to hear about Pika Creek.
All right. Well, a lot of the same thing, just a different site. So this one's on a tributary stream to Pika Creek. And we are going with a group called SRF Consulting Group Incorporated. So they come highly recommended. They have been working with other departments at the county. What's nice about SRF is that they have a master agreement with the county. So, they do enough work in a given year that that they enter into this master agreement, and then any bids that they win, we can do what's called a work order instead of our full-blown contract. So I'm not sure if that'll speed up the process or not, but the length of the agreement goes from 20 plus pages down to 2 or maybe 3 at the most. So it's kind of nice putting that one together. Because this one we decided before it was posted before the Xanadu Avenue one. We're a little further along with SRF and getting things in place. So they actually have a draft work order that they are editing, and then we'll put it on our contracts page for our attorney review. So once again, same thing. It was part of our 2015 feasibility study. We identified this in our new EPA grant for the design. So the funds will be coming from that grant to pay for the design. And then the winning bid was 96,870. So pretty close, both of the bids that that ended up winning it. With that, I'll stand for any questions.
Okay, any questions for Ryan? All right, hearing none, looks like that's it for today. So do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
This is Virgil. Before we adjourn, just a real quick question, if I may.
Absolutely.
Summer tour, is that going to be on the agenda, and when?
Madam Chair, Virgil, are you talking about our fall tour where we do it with the SW?
Oh, that's right. I guess we call it fall tour now, right?
Yeah, it can feel very summery depending on our weather.
So it's going to be on the August agenda maybe, or September agenda?
So unfortunately this year, due to budget issues, we actually do not have a tour planned for this year. That doesn't mean that it's being canceled indefinitely, but this year we do not have a joint tour. Now the SWCD is doing a tour as part of some of their grant requirements, but the WMO will participate in that, but we're not sponsoring it like we normally would be.
Okay, that's fine. I just was kind of curious as to what's going to happen, so I appreciate the update.
Yes, no, this is the time of the year where we would be talking about dates and.
Okay, I kind of noticed that was missing from the agenda. I was wondering, so thanks,
Yeah.
Brian.
You're welcome.
Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Okay, this is Virgil. With that update, then I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
And do we have a second?
Commissioner Shea, I'll second.
Okay, I'll call the roll. Commissioner Casilius,
Aye.
Commissioner Pint,
Aye.
Commissioner Beerling,
Aye.
Commissioner Weaver,
Aye.
Commissioner Shea,
Aye.
and Commissioner Schmidt.
Aye.
All right, the motion is passed. We'll plan to see everybody next month.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you.